Courtrooms are supposed to be serious, right? Yet somehow, America has turned them into open mic night for the dumbest excuses ever invented. From blaming ghosts to claiming your dog was the getaway driver. These are not defenses. They're comedy routines in handcuffs. This is 101 dumbest excuses criminals gave in court, and trust me, you'll leave wondering how judges keep a straight face. 1. When a New York man was caught with a stolen car, his defense was pure fashion police. He claimed his pants were too tight, which put pressure on a nerve, neurologically forcing him to commit grand theft auto. The jury was left wondering if they should issue a verdict or just get the man a pair of sweatpants. 2. A woman in Florida, busted for a DUI, had the perfect scapegoat, her GPS. She argued that the little voice in the box told her to make the illegal turn. It's a shame the GPS couldn't be called to the stand to testify. In 200 feet, turn right, directly into a holding cell. 3. Facing bank robbery charges, a man tried the evil twin defense. A classic, except for one tiny, inconvenient fact. He didn't have a twin. His defense was literally the adult version of, "My imaginary friend did it." You have to wonder if the prosecutor just held up a mirror and asked, "Is this the man?" 4. Caught passing a laughably fake 20, a guy insisted he wasn't a criminal. He was a brave, undercover consumer advocate, simply testing the store's anti-counterfeit measures. The judge thanked him for his service by giving him several years to consult on the quality of prison security. 5. A Michigan man's reason for trying to burn down a gas station? He saw a spider. He tried to kill it with a cigarette lighter, right next to the pump. In court, his defense was essentially, "Arachnophobia made me do it." You know, a totally proportional response. That spider is definitely dead. So is the gas station. 6. In a truly bold legal maneuver, a man accused of robbery argued he was simply too ugly to be the culprit. His logic: no witness could ever forget a face like his. He tried to weaponize his own self-esteem issues. The jury didn't know whether to deliver a verdict or a group hug. 7. After being found passed out in his crashed car, a man pointed the finger squarely at his dog. He insisted his golden retriever was driving. The officers on the scene must have been so confused. Do you give the dog a sobriety test? Does he get his own pawyer? The dog, for his part, maintained a stoic silence. 8. A woman charged with assault claimed she was possessed by the spirit of Beyoncé. She said the song, "Irreplaceable," took over her body and forced her to attack her boyfriend. The judge listened, then pointed everything she owned in a box to the left of a jail cell. 9. A man in Texas claimed he drove to a house, broke in, and stole a bunch of electronics, all while being completely asleep. What? That's not a defense. That's a criminal superpower. The jury didn't know whether to send him to prison or enter him in a contest for the world's most productive narcoleptic. 10. Caught shoplifting expensive shoes. A woman said it wasn't a crime, it was a medical emergency. Her own shoes were so uncomfortable she had to make an emergency swap. She wasn't a thief, you see, she was a brave first responder for her own arches. 11. Caught with a baggie of cocaine in his pocket, a man in Ohio swore to the judge that the pants he was wearing weren't his. A bold strategy. His defense crumbled when the prosecutor asked him to describe the pants he was supposed to be wearing. He couldn't. The court decided the pants and their contents were now his problem. 12. A man accused of starting a bar fight claimed it was all a terrible misunderstanding. He insisted he didn't punch the victim, he just had a very aggressive sneeze. What? Unfortunately for him, multiple witnesses testified that he had about 6 more aggressive sneezes that all looked suspiciously like right hooks. 13. After being caught shoplifting from a department store, a woman in California blamed it all on a ghost. She told the court a very demanding spirit possessed her and forced her to steal a designer handbag. The judge was unmoved, sentencing her to community service and noting that the ghost apparently had excellent, but very illegal taste. 14. Pulled over for driving over 100 miles per hour, a driver calmly told the officer he wasn't speeding. He was simply trying to air dry his car after leaving a car wash. The officer had to explain that's not how physics works, before handing him a ticket that probably cost enough to buy a professional buffing machine. 15. Discovered in a family's kitchen at 3 a.m. holding a sandwich, a burglar claimed it was a simple mistake. He thought it was his own house, which might have worked, except his actual house was 2 states away and didn't come with a very confused golden retriever staring at him. 16. A man in Arizona charged with robbing a convenience store with a banana argued it couldn't be armed robbery. His reasoning? He clearly stated, "This is a stick-up, not a fruit-up." The judge was so unimpressed he gave him extra time for the terrible pun alone. 17. When arrested for selling illegal substances, a man claimed he wasn't a dealer, but a social scientist. He said he was filming a YouTube documentary on urban economic trends. The judge loved the creativity and offered him a new long-term documentary subject: the daily life inside a federal prison. 18. A woman charged with setting her ex-boyfriend's car on fire had a fascinating defense. She claimed she wasn't committing arson, she was just aggressively barbecuing some marshmallows, and the car accidentally got in the way. The jury found her story a little hard to swallow. 19. Caught trying to rob a bank, a man told the judge he was simply method acting. He was preparing for a role in a Hollywood blockbuster and needed to feel the motivation of a real bank robber. His performance earned him a long-running, non-paying gig in a state-funded production. 20. A man found ridiculously drunk in public told police he was a time traveler from the future. He explained that in his time, alcohol had no intoxicating effect, and he was just trying to adapt to our primitive beverages. The judge decided to help him acclimate by sending him to a primitive correctional facility. 21. Why did a man steal an ambulance? His excuse was that he heard the ice cream truck jingle and got confused. I'm not sure what's worse, the crime or the admission that you can't tell the difference between a siren and a cheerful song about frozen treats. 22. A defendant in an assault case argued he couldn't have hit the victim because he was a devout pacifist. When confronted with video evidence of him clearly punching the guy, he calmly explained he wasn't punching him. He was just enthusiastically high-fiving his face. 23. A Florida man arrested for exposing himself in a park said it wasn't indecent exposure. He was simply checking for ticks in a very, very thorough manner. The judge suggested that next time he might want to conduct his public health inspections in private. 24. Facing charges for stealing a lawnmower, a man claimed he wasn't stealing it. He was liberating it. He told the court the lawnmower looked sad and neglected in the yard, and he was taking it to a better home. The judge decided to liberate the man from society for a few years. 25. A woman accused of kidnapping her neighbor insisted it was a misunderstanding. She wasn't kidnapping him, she was taking him on a mandatory surprise vacation. The judge treated her sentencing like a cancellation fee, and it was a steep one. 26. When police found a bag of marijuana in his apartment, a man swore it wasn't his. It was for his goldfish, which he claimed suffered from severe anxiety. I guess you can't prove a fish isn't stressed out. The judge sentenced him to time in a tank of his own. 27. A man caught spray painting a public building insisted he wasn't a vandal. He was an unpaid civil servant on a mission of urban beautification. He argued the wall's original color was an offense to his artistic sensibilities. The city thanked him by giving him a new canvas, cleaning graffiti off other walls. 28. After snatching a wallet from a tourist, a suspect was caught running in the opposite direction. His excuse? He wasn't stealing it. He was just running it back to the owner, so fast that he dramatically overshot the mark. The jury didn't buy his theory of criminal inertia. 29. A man pulled over for swerving all over the road swore to the officer he'd only had 1 beer. When they found a receipt in his car for a 64-ounce novelty glass, he confidently clarified, "Yeah, 1 giant beer." Points for honesty, I guess? But still a DUI. 30. A woman accused of hitting a man repeatedly with her purse claimed it was an uncontrollable medical condition. She said she suffered from sudden vertigo syndrome, and each swing was just her trying to regain her balance. The jury watched the security footage of her 8 balancing attempts and felt dizzy themselves. 31. Caught with a stack of poorly printed $100 bills, a man claimed they weren't counterfeit. They were prototype currency for a new board game he was inventing called Capitalism Extreme. The federal government decided to enroll him in a real-life game called Don't Drop the Soap. 32. When arrested for streaking through a shopping mall, a man looked the cop dead in the eye and said, "I'm not naked. I'm wearing hyper-advanced invisible clothes." The judge saw right through his defense and gave him an orange jumpsuit that was very, very visible. 33. A guy arrested for stealing a yacht had a truly cinematic excuse. He wasn't a thief. He was a hero, borrowing the boat to escape a secret zombie apocalypse that only he knew about. The court decided to quarantine him from the rest of us in a prison cell, just in case he was right. 34. When police found a significant amount of cocaine during a traffic stop, the driver looked genuinely baffled. His theory? The wind must have blown it in through his open window. Police are still on the lookout for the legendary cocaine tornado, he described. 35. A man caught driving on the wrong side of the freeway told the officer he was from England and simply got confused. The officer calmly pointed out that his steering wheel was on the left side of the car, and the giant sign he just passed featured a bald eagle, not a double-decker bus. 36. After his failing business mysteriously burned down, a man told insurance investigators it must have been spontaneous combustion. When they pointed to the 5 empty gasoline cans found at the scene, he doubled down, claiming, "Well, the cans must have spontaneously combusted too." 37. A robber who used a lampshade as a mask argued he shouldn't be convicted. His defense was that his disguise was so incredibly stupid, no one could have possibly felt genuinely threatened. He was essentially pleading not guilty by reason of extreme incompetence. The judge agreed his plan was dumb and sentenced him accordingly. 38. A man who led police on a lengthy foot chase had a simple explanation upon being tackled. He thought they were all just playing a friendly game of tag. He even cheerfully yelled, "You're it!" to the arresting officer. The judge informed him that the game was over and he had lost. 39. An illegal hunter caught way out of season swore he had the deer's permission. He told the game warden that he was an animal empath and had received clear, non-verbal consent from the buck before he shot it. The deer was unfortunately unavailable for comment. 40. Caught urinating on the tire of a police car, a man insisted it was a misunderstanding. He wasn't disrespecting the law, he was just checking the tire pressure using a method his grandfather taught him. What? The judge suggested a less organic method for his next vehicle inspection. 41. Charged with assault, a man swore he wasn't attacking the victim. He was a self-taught chiropractor, simply administering a surprise high-impact spinal adjustment. He insisted the screams were cries of relief, not terror. The judge adjusted his sentence to 5 to 10 years. 42. Pulled over for going 120, a driver told the officer he wasn't speeding for selfish reasons. He was practicing advanced aerodynamics, creating a slipstream to help the cars behind him save on gas. A true man of the people. The Highway Patrol gave him a special award, a reckless driving charge. 43. A woman caught stuffing her purse with high-end cosmetics blamed the store's marketing department. She argued the irresistible deals and must-have products were a form of psychological entrapment that she was powerless to resist. Apparently, 50% off is not a legally recognized form of mind control. 44. A man in Florida called 911 to complain that the meth he'd just purchased was of subpar quality. No, seriously. He wanted the police to force the dealer to give him a refund. The police did end up making an arrest that day, just not the one he was hoping for. 45. After driving his car directly into someone's backyard swimming pool, a man blamed it all on a bee. He said the insect flew into his car, causing a panic so profound that aquatic parking seemed like the only logical escape. The bee was never found, but the empty whiskey bottle on the passenger seat was taken into evidence. 46. A man accused of smashing his neighbor's windows said he was just working on his golf swing. When the prosecutor pointed out that the weapon was a crowbar, the man just shrugged. The judge politely suggested he practice his new sport on a prison rock pile instead. 47. A 19-year-old tried to buy beer with a fake ID that had his own photo on it, but the name Chuck Norris. When questioned, he claimed that he wasn't lying. Chuck Norris was just lying about being him. He was not, in fact, roundhouse kicked into the bar. 48. Caught stealing a shopping cart full of candy, a man blamed his new keto diet. He claimed the extreme lack of carbs induced a psychotic, sugar-starved break that could only be cured by nougat. The judge prescribed him a new diet plan: 3 square meals a day in the county jail. 49. After a bar fight, a defendant swore he wasn't trying to punch the victim in the face. He was just heroically trying to kill a single mosquito that had landed on the man's chin. Unfortunately for his case, security footage showed his anti-mosquito crusade involved about 5 punches and a kick. 50. A woman found inside a stranger's house at midnight claimed she was a surprise interior decorator. She was simply there to inform the homeowners that their floral curtains were a crime against design, and she had to intervene immediately. She's now redecorating the interior of a 6 by 8 foot cell. 51. A fast food worker tried to rob the restaurant he worked at while still wearing his uniform and name tag. His defense? He said it was a brilliant disguise because no one would possibly be stupid enough to rob their own workplace so openly. The judge disagreed on the "no one would be that stupid" part. 52. Pulled over with a trunk full of weed, a man claimed he was a scientist researching its effects on squirrels. He called himself an independent biologist, studying their foraging habits and short-term memory. He's now free to study the behavioral patterns of his fellow inmates. 53. After failing to hotwire a car, a man set it on fire. His excuse? The steering wheel was uncomfortably hot from the sun, and he was just trying to warm up his hands before driving. The jury was left speechless. The car was left, well, a pile of ash. 54. After robbing a convenience store, the suspect was arrested 10 minutes later. Where? At the bus stop right outside, waiting for his getaway vehicle. He told the cops he paid his fare and had every right to use public transit like a law-abiding citizen. 55. A man was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, a tattoo gun. He claimed he wasn't attacking the victim, he was just giving him a free tattoo. The victim, and the poorly drawn skull now permanently on his forehead, strongly disagreed. The court gave the defendant some new ink of his own, an inmate number. 56. A woman caught shoplifting an entire cart of groceries had a truly out-of-this-world excuse. She claimed the items weren't stolen. They were simply magnetically drawn to her, due to a rare solar flare. The judge, apparently an expert in astrophysics, sentenced her to 30 days in a place where the only thing she'd attract is a cellmate. 57. After T-boning another car, a driver told police it wasn't his fault. He was just trying to follow the driving instructions from a video game he'd been playing. He apparently forgot that real life doesn't have a reset button. The judge made sure his next driving experience would be in a virtual simulator, not on a public road. 58. A man caught breaking into a vending machine with a crowbar insisted he was a hero. He claimed a bag of chips inside was nearing its expiration date, and he was performing an emergency rescue mission. He was thanked for his service with a vandalism charge and a hefty fine that could have bought him a lifetime supply of chips. 59. When confronted with evidence of an elaborate check forging scheme, a woman blamed her evil cat. She swore the feline had a vendetta against the banking system and would walk across her keyboard, expertly signing fraudulent checks. The cat was not charged, but his owner was found guilty of being an accomplice. 60. After a high-speed chase ended in a crash, the driver's excuse was simple. "I thought you were my friend Dave, and I wanted to race you." The officer, whose name was not Dave, was not amused. He gave the driver a special prize for winning the race, a trip to the county jail in first place. 61. A man arrested for public intoxication claimed he wasn't drunk. He was conducting a social experiment to see how people would treat him if they thought he was drunk. The police decided to help him with the next phase of his experiment, seeing how he's treated in a drunk tank. 62. Caught red-handed stealing copper wire from a construction site, a man claimed he wasn't a thief. He was a performance artist, and his piece was titled "The Illusion of Ownership in an Industrial Society." The judge loved the title but decided the performance needed a new venue for the next 3 years. 63. A woman charged with keying her ex's car had a unique defense. She said she was simply practicing her calligraphy, and his car door just happened to be the most convenient surface available. The judge suggested she practice her new hobby on prison-issued notebooks instead. 64. A man found trying to pry open an ATM at 3 a.m. told police he had a perfectly good reason. His card got stuck, and he was just performing unauthorized machine maintenance. The bank's actual maintenance team later confirmed the machine was fine, but the man's alibi was broken beyond repair. 65. Pulled over for driving with a live alligator in his passenger seat, a Florida man said it wasn't a crime. The alligator was his designated driver. The officer had several follow-up questions, starting with how a reptile with no legs reached the pedals. Both driver and gator were taken into custody. 66. A defendant in a robbery trial claimed he had an identical twin who was a notorious criminal. When the prosecutor showed a family photo of him as an only child, he shot back, "That's exactly what my evil twin wants you to think." The jury wasn't convinced by his interdimensional family drama. 67. A shoplifter caught with a live lobster in his pants insisted he wasn't stealing it. He was just taking it for a walk because the lobster tank looked too cramped and inhumane. The judge commended his passion for animal rights before sentencing him to a small, cramped cell of his own. 68. A man arrested for throwing bricks through a bakery window said it wasn't vandalism. He was just providing customer feedback on their ridiculously high prices for croissants. The judge provided feedback on his feedback in the form of a bill for the window and several months of community service. 69. During a drug bust, police found a man trying to flush his stash down the toilet. His excuse? He wasn't destroying evidence. He was trying to get the neighborhood sewer alligators high. He felt they were underappreciated members of the ecosystem. What? 70. A woman caught siphoning gas from her neighbor's car said it was all a misunderstanding. She was a good Samaritan, simply removing the poisonous liquid from his car before it could do any harm. She's now a good Samaritan in the prison laundry room. 71. After being found passed out behind the wheel at a green light, a man told the officer he wasn't driving. He claimed his car was emotionally attached to the bar they'd just left and refused to go home. The officer decided to help them through their codependent crisis by impounding the car and arresting the man. 72. A man caught stealing expensive jewelry had a surprising accomplice, his parrot. He swore the bird was a kleptomaniac and had actually trained him to be its human assistant. The parrot was not charged, but is now considered a tiny, feathered mastermind in the criminal underworld. 73. After a massive bar brawl, a man insisted he wasn't fighting. He was just passionately interpreting the loud music through modern dance, and the other man's face kept getting in the way of his expressive flailing. The judge sentenced him to 6 months, where his only dance partner will be a mop bucket. 74. A man arrested for sunbathing completely naked on a park bench claimed he wasn't being indecent. He was a holistic wellness enthusiast, simply trying to soak up vitamin D in its purest, most effective form. The judge recommended a new wellness routine that included wearing pants. 75. When his shed mysteriously burned down, a man told firefighters it was a tragic cooking accident. He was trying to cook a frozen pizza with a flamethrower as part of an experimental culinary technique. The pizza was incinerated, and the chef was given a new kitchen to work in, complete with steel bars. 76. A woman caught writing a series of bad checks swore she thought the money was good. Her psychic told her she was destined to become a millionaire that week, so she was just pre-spending her spiritually guaranteed funds. The judge looked into his own crystal ball and foresaw a future of fines and probation. 77. Found inside a family's home holding their TV, a burglar claimed he was a real estate agent who thought the house was empty. The homeowner, who was pointing a shotgun at him, was not in the market for a new agent, especially one who makes house calls at 2 in the morning. 78. Pulled over for doing 90 in a 45, a driver told the cop he was conducting a very important scientific experiment. He was trying to get to 88 miles per hour to see if time travel was real. Instead of seeing 1955, the only thing he saw in his future was a massive ticket and a mandatory driving course. 79. After repeatedly kicking a parking meter, a man told police it wasn't vandalism. The meter stole his quarter, and he was simply trying to reclaim his property. He insisted he was the victim. In the case of man versus machine, the machine won, and the man was charged with destruction of city property. 80. Caught with a large amount of hashish, a man swore it wasn't for personal use. It was a special gourmet seasoning for his award-winning chili recipe. The judge declined an invitation to the cook-off and instead gave him 3 years to perfect a recipe for prison loaf. 81. A man who smacked a stranger on the back of the head had a heroic excuse. He thought the guy was a sleeper agent from a spy movie and was just testing his reflexes as a matter of public safety. The victim's reflexes proved excellent, as he immediately called the police. 82. After robbing a convenience store with a water pistol, a man told police it was all for his viral prank channel. He even told the terrified cashier to smash that like button on his way out. His next video will be titled, "I spent 5 years in prison prank gone wrong." 83. Police were called about a man dressed as a tree blocking traffic. His defense? He wasn't a person, he was a tree, and therefore not subject to human traffic laws. He was just blending in with nature, in the middle of a 4-lane intersection. What? The police decided to transplant him to a new environment. 84. Caught in a stolen convertible, a man claimed the car seduced him. He said its headlights were winking at him, and he felt it would be rude not to take it for a spin. The car was returned to its owner, while the man was sent to a place where his unwanted advances would be firmly rejected. 85. A man arrested for screaming on a street corner insisted he wasn't disturbing the peace. He was a nutritional crusader, loudly and aggressively warning people about the hidden dangers of gluten. The judge suggested he adopt a new diet, one free of public nuisance. 86. A man who pulled a fire alarm in a quiet office building claimed he was performing a civic duty. He wasn't a fire inspector, but a concerned citizen who felt the system hadn't been tested in a while. The fire department gave him a personal demonstration of their response time, followed by a special test of their holding cell. 87. After being caught shoplifting, a woman told the judge she had a rare medical condition. She was allergic to price tags. She claimed the mere sight of them triggered an involuntary kleptomaniac response. The judge prescribed her a powerful anti-theft antihistamine, 100 hours of community service. 88. A man in a homemade cape jumped off a garage onto the hood of a car. His defense? He genuinely believed he was a superhero and was just testing his flight capabilities. He learned a valuable lesson that day. Gravity is one law you can't appeal. 89. During a court hearing, a man suddenly burst into song and dance. When the judge ordered him to stop, he claimed he thought he was in a musical, and this was his big show-stopping number. The judge informed him that the final act would be a solo performance. In a very small, quiet room. 90. Caught breaking a department store window, a man claimed he wasn't a burglar. He was an inanimate object liberator, freeing a mannequin from its life of plastic captivity. He's now enjoying a new life of captivity himself, with significantly less fashionable company. 91. After crashing his car into a tree, a man swore to the police that a ghost had grabbed the steering wheel. He provided a detailed description of the specter, noting it had terrible driving skills. The judge decided to charge the only person in the car who actually had a pulse. 92. A robber, caught by his intended victim, claimed he was the real victim. He insisted the store clerk had hypnotized him with a calming gaze, forcing him to surrender against his will. The jury, however, was not mesmerized by his story. 93. A man ticketed for parking in a no parking zone fought it in court. His argument, the sign said no parking, not no standing. He was simply standing his car there for a while. The judge explained that his car would now be lying down in an impound lot. 94. Caught stealing a family-sized lasagna, a man claimed it wasn't theft. It was an unsolicited cultural food exchange program. He even left a single breath mint on the shelf as his contribution. The court immediately enrolled him in a less tasty exchange program with the state penitentiary. 95. A man arrested for drug possession tried to pin it all on his pet hamster. He told the police the hamster was the mastermind, a tiny furry drug kingpin who framed him. What? The hamster was not detained, but its owner was. 96. A man caught shoplifting claimed he had a rare disorder that made him move in perpetual slow motion. He argued he fully intended to pay, but simply couldn't make it to the checkout counter before the store closed. The judge delivered a guilty verdict at a regular speed. 97. After an attempted robbery where he slipped on a banana peel he himself had thrown down, a man said it was all part of his final exam for clown school. He told the court he was practicing a slippery getaway routine. He got a failing grade in crime and a passing grade into a jail cell. 98. A man arrested for throwing a bowling ball off a freeway overpass said he was just checking if gravity still worked. He claimed it was a public service. The police confirmed gravity was, in fact, working perfectly, especially on the handcuffs they snapped onto his wrists. 99. A man insisted he couldn't be guilty because his doppelganger from a parallel universe must have committed the crime. He argued it was a classic case of interdimensional identity theft. The judge decided to sentence the version of him from this universe, just to be safe. 100. A tourist who verbally insulted a police officer claimed it was Google Translate's fault. He said he was trying to ask for directions, but the app gave him a phrase that was, let's say, less than polite. The judge told him the word guilty needs no translation. 101. And for the grand finale, a man robbed a bank by handing the teller a note written on the back of his own utility bill, with his name and address clearly visible. His excuse? He was just trying to save paper and be environmentally friendly. The police were very grateful for his commitment to recycling, and for making their job ridiculously easy. So that's the circus. 101 excuses, so absurd they make you question if crime lowers IQ on impact. But here's the real question. If you had to stand in front of a judge, what's the most ridiculous excuse you'd dare to try? Drop it in the comments. I want to see if my audience can outdumb the actual criminals. And if you enjoyed this ride through legal insanity, hit that like button and subscribe, because what's coming next makes these look like Harvard debate material.